A while ago, I made a video talking about Mushoku Tensei, and if you want to hear my full thoughts on the first season, you could watch that video. But generally, I criticized the show for how it treats its child characters, and I thought it was kinda gross, while acknowledging that the show did have many strong points when it wasn't focused on, sexualizing its child characters. I got many comments calling me out for calling out sexualizing kids in media. Weird hill to die on, but you do you, I guess. But I hope that the second season will start to stray away from this type of content, and after finally watching it, oof. Big oof. So if you wanted to hear a video about the strengths and weaknesses of the new season, how great it is, praising the show and basking in all its glory, this isn't the video. I had mixed opinions of Mushoku Tensei. While I found some parts of the show pretty fucking degenerate, I did think the show had some strong points. The animation, the world building, I found it to be a very grounded and entertaining show. I loved learning more about magic, the different characters, and everything the show had to offer. But going into season 2, I did have my doubts. I wanted season 2 to be different, otherwise I could never be fully comfortable watching it due to some of the ways the show tends to treat its characters. And then when I finally got around to checking out season 2, I got some things to say. In episode 2, Rudy has a fantasy about running naked chasing Eris on the beach. Eris, who is between the ages of 13 and 15 in the second season, and as they run along the beach, Rudy's fantasy is interrupted by the sound of puking. Eris is unfortunately sick and needs Rudy's help to take care of her. Rudy, seeing a girl in a vulnerable position, starts eyeing up her body as the camera pans over her chest with an open shirt, then jumping down to her crotch with her underwear showing. And all of this gets Rudy so hot and heavy that he has to leave the girl that he's nursing back to health to go jack off in the bathroom. And people are telling me that this stuff makes it more realistic, more relatable. Oh, probably a newbie to the novel genres. Nothing about this story is Gruz. Having multiple wives and close relation to blood relatives and having sexual relations early in their early stages was common at that time. It is a totally realistic world setting. Many goated authors have written such type of realistic fictional story, so you are really stupid if you're calling the author gross for doing his work properly and staying true to the world setting. That I am privileged for thinking this is weird as hell. Relatable to who? What part of this is more realistic? Why is this realistic to you? In episode 3, 3 girls tickle each other in the bath while Rudy spies on them from another area. But the part that made me really want to make a video about season 2 was episode 1, which surprisingly I accidentally skipped over and started on episode 2, but I digress. It was one scene in particular that made me want to make this video. It was an introduction to the 1,000-year-old Lolly Demon King. You know, the gajillion-year-old demon Lolly that you've only heard of in legends. She was 1,000-year-old, Your Honor. Here she is, in the flesh. And after Rudy gives her some food to, save her from starving to death, she offers him a reward as thanks. And Rudy's request, as his reward, is sex. Now she agrees to have sex with him, and here we are. We get a nice tantalizing zoom in of her crotch, the crotch of a 12-year-old body. Really realistic and helps. And that's when I was reminded of another show, Made in Abyss. While Made in Abyss definitely has its own controversies, people accusing it of sexualizing the kids in that show and just generally being creepy with the kids. While I may disagree with some of the examples people bring up against the show, I do want to talk about one particular scene that happens later on. Now, if you haven't seen Made in Abyss, here's a quick rundown. There's a giant hole in the center of the island filled with treasures and monsters, and the people who explore this hole, or the abyss, are called delvers. We follow our main character Riko, a small girl who wants to dive through the abyss, following after her mother, who recently went down there and disappeared. My money's on she died, but we'll never know until we get there. But as I said, the abyss is a dangerous place filled with creatures and other dangerous, psychotic, horrendous delvers who do some pretty shitty things. On top of the abyss having a mysterious force field that can literally kill you if you travel it wrong. But Riku doesn't care. She is determined to see this through and fears never seeing the bottom of the abyss more than she fears losing her own life. So when Riku finds a robot boy named Ragged in the first layer of the abyss, her interest is completely piqued and she is eager to explore every part of his body when she finally gets back home with him. point is, Riku doesn't see nudity as a big deal, not something to think twice about. Reg, the robot boy, is more subconscious and embarrassed about it. And in the last episode, Riku broke her arm and needs help undressing so that she can get washed up. And Reg helps Riku get undressed because they're good friends at this point. And after helping her, he attempts to find another pool to wash it by himself, is then convinced into bathing with Riku. And that's when Riku notices that, things are arising, at which point Reg hides under the water out of embarrassment. Now, people might have their own feelings about Made in Abyss, but the point of this was to say that minors do experience sexuality. That's just life. And there are ways of exploring that or talking about it without turning it into absolute degeneracy. Like if this was a scene in Mushoku Tensei, Reg would be helping Riku undress and then we would immediately zoom into her ass crack or something, or as he's helping her, we would cut away to a sexual fantasy that Reg was mentally having as he was doing this. And that's the point. The show doesn't have to go this far. You don't have to be this weird and gross about everything. If the show really wants to explore sexuality, you can do that without literally zooming in on a crotch of every single character that comes on screen. But I think the most disappointing thing of all is how much care goes into the show. The scene of Rudy and the 1,000-year-old demon lolly was genuinely funny. The animation, the timing, the stylistic choice they made in regards to Rudy's face was hilarious. And for that to be absolutely ruined by the demon lord saying that she already had a fiance, then immediately jamming her finger in Rudy's eye, I got a good laugh out of that. The different fight scenes and watching how Rudy takes on stronger and more experienced foes, and learning more about the different races and established characters like Ghislaine, or the moment where Rudy is captured and stripped naked and forced to live in a cage for days by the cat people who thought Rudy had defiled their sacred deity. He was getting a bit too hands-on with their dog god, and they didn't take too kindly to that. And when another person is thrown into prison with Rudy, Rudy is stressed out like a French model and makes it known that he runs this cage. This is his domain, and he ain't taking shit from no newcomers who comes into this cage. And as weird as that may sound, the point is that nothing about this scene is sexualized. The show doesn't fixate on Rudy's body, no one talks about Rudy's ass or other degenerate thoughts. It's just a straight-faced scene that's propped up by how absurd the situation is. Like, even if you think that is weird, there's a huge difference between that scene in this scene. The show is treated with the care and respect of a series that wants to be the best show you've ever seen this year. And it's a bit sad that it has to be bogged down with what I consider a lot of unnecessary, degenerate, weird shit. Needless to say, this unfortunate show with such a passionate team behind it and strong elements has to also come with so many other polarizing and hard to ignore aspects. And that is my video on Mushoku Tensei Season 2. I don't plan on talking more about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish it, but here's my follow-up to the first video. So if you're wondering if things get better, now you know. It doesn't.